Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice, the podcast for women who are done waiting for the one and ready to become the parent on their own damn terms. We're talking fertility, pregnancy, emotional chaos, and the village that it takes to raise a kid. Sometimes you're crying in the bathtub. Sometimes you're crying because your toddler bit you. And sometimes you cry because you chose all of this. Welcome to motherhood, solo style. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice. I'm your host, Laura. Today, I'm really excited to chat with Victoria Crowe, the founder of Signature Donors in Manhattan. She's deeply involved in helping people build families through egg donation, a topic that's equal parts technical and deeply personal. To give a little extra context before we dive into this episode, right now in the United States, nearly 10,000 babies are born a year through IVF using donor eggs, and this is according to Co-Fertility. This comes out to about 1 in every 373 births. The success rates of donor eggs is very strong. Many clinics see 50 to 55% live birth rates with fresh donor egg cycles based on data from eggdonationfriends.com. And on the sperm side, usage is growing as well. Research published through PMC estimates that nearly 500,000 women in the United States have used donor sperm for fertility treatment. Plus, donor sperm cycles account for roughly 6% of all ART cycles. And this is according to the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. So that's the world that Victoria works in. This intersection of science, compassion, and modern family building. Victoria is here, and thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Choosing Chaos. Victoria, how are you today?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I want to begin by asking you if you can share what Signature Donors is all about and what inspired you to start it.
Of course. Well, first, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Signature Donors is a full-service egg donation agency, or at least that is how we started. So taken some time, to recruit some top-notch egg donors. One thing that makes us different is we fully screen all of our egg donors. We are physician supported, and we're able to do the AMH testing, genetic carrier screening, psych eval. We do a background check. All of these things that are typically done when the donor is chosen by the intended parent or parents. And by doing these things before, we are able to not only make matches quicker, but more secure. It moves a little bit faster, and we know that genetically this match is compatible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that works, because I'm not familiar with the egg donor screening process as well as the picking process. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So we, first thing we do is an AMH level. Well, let me take a step back. The first thing the donors do is submit an application. It's pretty extensive. It goes through their family history, their own health history, immediate family members, and there are some immediate disqualifiers: genetic diseases, hereditary diseases, cancer, and immediate family members. There's, I would say, more donors have to be disqualified than donors that are accepted.
Oh, really?
Which is unfortunate, because sometimes she's the perfect candidate, and then she may have a parent with substance abuse problems or something, and unfortunately we can't accept her. The application is the first thing that we do to really learn about the donor and their ambitions and why they want to donate and all of that. Yeah. Then we meet with them on Zoom. We do an interview to learn more, and then we go into that medical pre-screening that I mentioned. That's essentially everything the doctor needs to approve this donor. Okay. It's AMH, anti-Müllerian hormone, which gives us a good idea of her egg reserve. We do a psych eval, which is important that all donors pass in order to be in our program. The genetic carrier screening, which tests for over 600
Wow.
hereditary diseases, and that's also required by the intended parent or parents. The egg source and the sperm source must not test positive for any of the same things. And then they meet with a genetic counselor, which we have on our team, and then they are posted to the database.
That's a very similar process to one, becoming a single mother by choice, but also I would assume the same thing for a sperm donor, which let me jump ahead a little bit. There's some
Yeah.
exciting news that you wanted to share about a new program through Signature Donors. Can you share
Yes.
with us?
We are launching a sperm donation program. We are still signature donors, but we'll have signature egg donation and then signature sperm donation. We are not a sperm bank. We are doing directed and non-directed matches. It'll be the same concept, which we call the signature way. Fully pre-screened donors ready to go. And I think it makes a big difference in terms of sperm. It makes it less transactional. They'll have an idea of who they are donating to, and they can decide how many families they would like to help. I think it makes the process a lot more personalized, which is what the industry needs.
Yeah. So it cuts out that anonymous piece too?
They will be able to choose if they want to be anonymous or not, like
Okay.
a donation.
How does that sperm donation differ from the egg donation, or is it very similar as far as screening
So
goes?
as far as screening goes, very similar. The only different part is it's a lot quicker, easier to, produce your sample. No
Yeah.
medications or anything like that required. The difference is that for the FDA, the sample has to quarantine for a
Okay.
certain amount of weeks. And then the donor will have to return for blood work to make sure that sample is usable. That is the one difference. There is a little bit of a waiting time after the fact.
And you mentioned that the donor for sperm would be able to pick the families. Did I hear that correctly?
I wouldn't say so much pick, but what I mean is, when a sperm donor is donating to a bank, they have no idea who it's going to
Right.
or how many. But like with an egg donor, they have an idea. They know it's a single mom from New Jersey or wherever, and they know the clinic she's working with. They know some details, even if they choose to be anonymous. They know that their great gift is going to someone who really appreciates it. So
Yeah.
that's the whole idea behind the sperm donation. It's
Yeah.
not just give us your sample and be on your way. All of our donations are fresh, meaning the donor is matched directly with the recipient and travels to their clinic and does their donation there.
And then how can somebody looking for an egg donor connect with you in order to understand more about that side of the selection process?
Yeah, you can find us at signaturedonors.com. There is a contact us portion, which goes directly to me, actually. That would be the easiest way to go about it. And on our website, you can also find our egg donor database, which is free to access the full thing. You would just follow the link and sign up there.
Tell me a little bit more about how do you approach inclusivity, ensuring your programs serve single moms by choice, LGBTQ, and couples with fertility challenges.
Yeah, of course. Our recipients are all of the things you mentioned and more. You really have all different types of people, and it goes back to me growing up in this space. My stepdad is an IVF physician. My mom worked in the practice for many years, and now she's a marriage and family counselor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so growing up in this space, it was just really second nature to me.
Right.
I, met intended parents, surrogates, donors, everything of this sorts. And I, for a long time, have been part of Men Having Babies, which is a really great network for LGBTQ plus families looking to grow. And social media is a big one. One of the things I'm trying to do with Signature is really, because I did study marketing, so really taking advantage of what social media has to offer for all of these groups and spreading the word and letting everyone know what Signature is and what we do and how we can help.
Yeah. So it sounds like growing up in this space has really left an impact on you because you saw how many families that
Yeah.
it's touched, which is truly
Yes.
amazing. And I'm sure your parents are incredibly proud of you for starting this
They
company.
are. They were surprised. It was completely my decision. And I think they were a little bit surprised, but they're very happy.
You have a lot of support there. What values guide your work when you're matching donors with their intended parents?
Yeah. So a lot of ethical values, first and foremost, the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, ASRM, following their guidelines, and also SEEDS ethics. We're a member of SEEDS, and I'm actually on the marketing committee with them as well. I'm very in touch with the standards and the updates and other professionals who work in this industry. The other thing is personalized care goes a long way. And that was one of the big things for me when I decided to start Signature is I think both on the donor side and the recipient side, there needed to be more personalized attention.
Yeah.
When I meet with recipients, I say first thing, tell me about your journey, tell me about you, tell me what you're looking for, what your dreams are, and then, before I get into anything else, because at the end of the day, it's about finding the perfect donor for the recipient.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've built so many connections through this. Yeah.
For sure.
Beyond medical criteria, what qualities do you look for in donors?
It's really different across the board because every recipient's looking for something different.
Hmm.
Some are, looking for specific ethnicity. That's their first factor. Education is a really big one. Looks sometimes is the most important thing. Religion, what they do for work, their career. It's a really different, and we have a very diverse group of egg donors. We don't specialize in one specific type of donor. It is a very diverse group that we have on our database. Like I mentioned before, the health portion comes first. Before a donor is even hitting our database, they're having such a large amount of testing and screening. So health doesn't even need to be a concern or worry for our recipients because they know we've taken care of that.
Do you have a age cutoff for the donors?
We do. So it is 21 to 31.
Okay.
And then for sperm, it's going to be 18 to 36.
And what's the thought process behind those
Yep.
age
So
ranges?
both are generally standard in the industry and set forth by ASRM. For sperm, the 36 is a little bit lower. I believe, and I don't quote me, that it might go to 40, but I wanted it to be a little bit lower to ensure the best quality for donors that we can.
Yeah. And I'm sure risk factors as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then same on the egg side too, is like you said, to up to 31, just the quality of them.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, we'll get a 31-year-old woman apply who's never donated before and doesn't have any children, so no proven fertility, and that's a little bit difficult for us. It really is on a case-by-case basis once it gets to the higher end. But they may have so many other amazing credentials that I know recipients would really be drawn to. So that's why it's a case-by-case basis.
When you get an egg donation, how many eggs are you retrieving from one donor?
Right. So it's not a set amount. Every donation is different, and we're able to anticipate, or the medical professionals are able to anticipate based on the donor's anti-Müllerian hormone, which is their AMH level. That's the ovarian reserve that I was talking about. And then how they're progressing on their medication. So they're being very closely monitored on those 14-ish days that they're on their injectable medications. And
Would that be the Menopur and
Yep.
the Follistim?
Yes. And with that monitoring, the doctor is able to see the follicles and how they're progressing. By doing all of the screening that we do, we're able to anticipate the best outcome possible for our recipients. But there, again, with a fresh donation, there are no guarantees. We can't say you're going to absolutely have X amount of eggs. With a fresh donation, you are receiving all of the eggs that are retrieved, which is very different than purchasing frozen eggs, like from a bank or an agency that does frozen. We're actually shying away from frozen donations right now because, with a frozen donation, you're just purchasing a lot of 6 or a lot of 8. And then you're, thawing them, and you don't know what the quality is going to be once they're thawed, because it won't be as great as when the eggs were originally retrieved. So that's why fresh donation is really working for our recipients, because they're able to get all the eggs.
I've heard some things about it could decrease the quality of the egg during the thaw process, right?
Yeah. I'm not a medical professional, but from what I've heard and what I've experienced, you don't always know what the outcome will be after a thaw, for whatever it be, egg, sperm, embryo.
How do you verify the accuracy of donor reported information like education, interests, family history, etc.?
Yeah. So for the most part, the family history is, we have to take the donor for their word. And, I wish there was something more that we could do on that portion, but we're meeting these donors. We're able usually to get a good sense of who they are as a person and why they're doing this.
Yeah.
In terms of the family history, they're also meeting with our mental health therapist who's doing their psych eval. There are portions of that exam that look at the family history, making sure that matches up with what they reported to us. And then also the genetic counselor will ask them about their family history. Really, cross-checking and making sure they've been honest and what they've reported is consistent with all the different parts of the testing. The education piece, we ask for a diploma. If they have graduated from a university, if they have a bachelor's degree or further, or even an associate's or further, providing the diploma, and then typically you can check that online. And then the background check is a big part. We have a service we use that to background check the donors, and they're giving us their ID and their personal information to do that. So, and we unfortunately have found discrepancies once we do that background check. That's a really important part of our screening process.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
For sperm donors specifically, how do you manage the inventory?
Yeah. The sperm donation, the way we're actually going about it with these direct matches, and when I say direct, I don't mean open or anonymous. I mean that they're kind of, in our database the way egg donors are, waiting to be selected by a recipient. So we're not storing these vials and vials of frozen sperm. It'll work the same way the egg donation program does, which the donor will wait to be chosen to complete their sample and their donation.
So I'm a single mom by choice. I'm looking for a sperm donor. I look through a database that you have available. I select a donor that meets all of the genetic criteria as well as CMV status and all the other things that I'm looking for. And then when you say the direct donation, what's the process from there after I have selected that specific donor?
Yeah, so you would let us know that you're interested in whichever donor, and we would go to him and say, hi, we have a match for you. She is a single mother by choice from Pittsburgh and working with X Clinic. And do you accept this match? Which is the same thing we do for our egg donors. And they say yes. And then we have a number of partner clinics that all over the US that our donors can go to for their donation, their collection. And then we will coordinate the shipment. We have a number of providers that we've connected with to create a solid database of options for recipients on shipment and all of that.
So there would be some time where it's like frozen, right?
Yes, for sperm.
Okay.
The egg donor will travel to the clinic that the recipient is working with. We've worked with numerous clinics in the US and developed great relationships with them, and we're always working to meet more clinics, work with more clinics. The travel is all included in our pricing. It's covered for the donor, and that includes meal allowance and transportation, flight, hotel, all of that.
What's estimated cost of all of that?
It's difficult to say because we really calculate based on where the clinic is, where the donor lives, how many times the clinic wants to see the donor in person, which varies, and then, like how standard hotel costs in that area, standard flight, and then the donor's compensation also varies based on her experience.
How do you prepare a donor, I would say more so egg donor, for physical and emotional aspects of the donation process? And I know that they go through a bit of this with the screening and seeing the genetic counselor and all of that kind of stuff. So
this was another thing that was very important to me when I started Signature and I thought could be improved upon. What I've found is donors don't want to be treated like a patient in a clinic. They're healthy, they're young women, they're not, doing IVF to have their own child or whatever. So setting that standard from the first time that we meet with them and really explaining what the process is like, and because that's another portion is donors that are just not educated properly and they don't really know what they're getting into. So education is a really big component. We have a really nice long PowerPoint that we share on our screen when we meet with them, and our donor coordinator, Kelsey, who's awesome, she takes them through everything, answers their question, shares other donor experiences with them, and we have a little, portion of how, like notes from other Signature donors who have said, oh, I was feeling this, I was nervous about this, but this is how it went, and testimonials. So that is the one thing we do. We set that standard from the first meeting that we are here for you, what you're doing is amazing, this is how it's going to go, this is what we're going to do, and so on and so forth. And then the other really big aspect is the psychological evaluation. So the mental health professional that does those is really, getting a gauge on their preparedness, seeing, are they at a good point in their life to do this? Why do they want to do it? Are they doing it for the right reasons? Those are a really important part of it too.
Yeah. Have you ever had anybody get through that whole process and then get ready to do the retrieval and they're like, I don't know about this. I think I might have changed my mind.
We have not.
Good.
Not, thankfully.
Yeah.
And there are, of course, cancellation policies in place at every point of a match, should anything happen.
That's reassuring too on your side.
Yeah.
How do you balance the need for donor privacy with the desire for recipient families to know more about their donor?
Yeah, so we allow donors to decide when they submit their application, they check off, are you willing to be an open donor, anonymous donor, semi-open donor? And the terms have changed now over the years. Directed, non-directed, and semi-directed, I believe, are the latest and greatest terms for that. So just by, initially saying, what are you comfortable with? And that is what we're going to do. That when a recipient, I do a consultation and they tell me we have to have an open donor, I know already my list of donors that meet their criteria and are willing to be open. That's really important, is giving them that choice. And then also I ask the recipient, what are you looking for? What type of relationship are you looking to maintain? And then when there's interest in a donor, I go to them and I tell them, this is what they're looking for. This is their expectation. Are you comfortable with that? And then that comes back into play when the legal agreement is drafted between the intended parent and the donor. The legal team goes over that again with both of them and puts all of that into writing.
Do you see more directed or indirected?
Mostly see what we call semi. That would be the donor willing to be contacted when offspring turn 18. They're willing to share their identity at that point, but right now they don't want to share their identity. And we use a service, which is part of our donor software that we use. It is a EDC Nexus, a donor egg registry. There is a feature on there where the donor and the recipient can have anonymous communication, like a chat, and it doesn't reveal her identity. It sends her an annual email for health updates on her and her family, and the opportunity to provide updated photos. That's a really good resource that we've been utilizing for those semi donations.
It sounds like it. Do you see any trends in what intended parents are looking for donors in today's day and age?
It really depends on every family and what they're looking for. Yeah, it's really different. And off the top of my head, I can't really think of any trends. I've had a lot of really different descriptions of what someone is looking for in a donor. A lot of, some people, like I think I touched on it before, maybe religion's really important to them. A donor that's been raised and has the same beliefs that they do. Or maybe a donor that is very creative. They're an artist and they want a donor genetics to be creative as well.
Yeah.
It's really all over the place.
It's funny you say that. Several of the women that I have spoken to, they say similar things like, I'm not creative, so I picked somebody who was the complete opposite of me.
Right.
And yeah.
I get that sometimes too. It's either I want, essentially me in the donor form, or it's I want their genetics to complement mine so that I can, create.
When I picked my donor, one of the biggest things to me was I'm short. I'm 5'1". I had a feeling I was going to have a boy. And so I was like, I want him to have the best possible outcome of being tall. I
Yeah.
want to give him the chance. And I picked somebody who is taller, which they're hard to find. One, they sell out so quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but then he was an engineer, and I was like, okay, he's smart. I'm smart, but not that smart. And so I'm going to lean into this one.
I get a lot of intended parents who also are like, you know what? These things don't matter that much. I believe in nurture, and I believe, my child will be the way they are based on how I raise them. What type of job they have is not the most important thing to me.
Yeah. You touched a little bit on this before, but how do you guide families on the topic of disclosure, like sharing their children's donation
Yeah.
story as they grow up?
Yeah, that's a big one. And I keep saying this, but I that's another thing I thought about how I can make signature different, because I actually have someone very close to me who's donor conceived and didn't know for a little bit of their life. And I think it's important sharing where you came from. And that's another thing with my family background in the industry, is seeing how important that is and how it can go a really long way. And I know my mom's very passionate about it as a mental health counselor for the infertility space. As an agency, there's not all that much we can do besides honoring the recipient's wishes. When we say that open, do you want an open donor or anonymous? So and at that point, when they are choosing their donor, they may not even think that far as to what am I going to tell my kids.
Because they're
So,
more worried about just being able to be
yeah,
fertile and have the baby that they're looking for.
right.
Yeah, it's that little
Yeah.
hope.
I think those conversations tend to come a little bit later in the
Yeah.
process.
Growing up in this space, have you seen that it's
Mhm.
been more impactful telling them younger or older about donor conception?
Personally, I think younger, just kind of making it part of the norm.
Their
Like this,
story.
yeah, this is your story. This is how our family was created. And, you know, I have a very diverse family. I have, a stepmom and a stepdad, and I have step siblings and four sets of grandparents. It's making it your story and your norm, and this is my life, and embracing it, I think, is the best way to go about it.
Yeah. It seems to be more common, I guess you would say,
Yeah,
than it was maybe years ago. Being
absolutely.
donor conceived in general, from whether it's an egg or sperm.
Yeah. We actually, in our home office, in my parents' house, they have all these really cute books that are like children's books that discuss this is how it's created, or some are, my mom is a surrogate. What does that mean? And
Mhm.
my parents used an egg donor. What does that mean? They're a really good way to illustrate what does all this mean to a little mind.
Yeah, the story of how one is created. What role do you see donor siblings, sometimes called siblings, playing in a long-term family building journey?
Yeah, when, if recipients know when they're looking for their donor how many children they're planning on having, that goes into the criteria of what type of donor. So they say, typically they being medical professionals, the higher the AMH, the larger amount of eggs you can expect, the larger outcome. For an example, let's say a same sex couple that is splitting the eggs and using two sperm sources, most medical professionals will suggest an AMH of 4.0 or higher. That kind of gives an idea of, but maybe a donor with like a 2.5 to 3, would be like is still a really great donor and ideal for a couple or an individual that knows they really want to have one child.
Yeah. How is technology like genetic testing or even now AI, very popular, matching tools,
Yeah.
changing the donor selection process?
These genetic tests have really developed. I feel as though like every day it's like they're adding more and more genes. But there are some that test for over 1,000, which is a little less common in the space. But I it makes it more difficult. The more genes, hereditary genes that you're testing for, the more likely the donor is to be positive. So that would make it a little more difficult for her to find
Match.
match. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the other hand, it is so great that we know all of this information. And it is so great for the recipients because
Mhm.
they're able to have a more accurate genetic prediction and PGT testing and eye color, etc., gender is I think really really cool. I'm a control freak, I'll admit it. I think it's the idea of saying, okay, I'm going to have, a boy and then a girl and then a boy and then a whatever, I think is really great. Yeah.
So you grew up in this industry. Now you have this company, Signature Donors. When
Hmm.
you plan to have a baby in the future, should you decide to, how does all of this and being a control
Yeah.
freak and knowing all that you know about genetics
Yeah.
factor into you wanting to have a baby?
I think about this a lot. I'm also on the younger side. I'm not ready to have kids yet. But
Take your time.
I kind of just want to let go and see what happens, let it happen naturally, which I hope when I get to the point where I'm ready to have kids that everything goes well and I can get pregnant and everything. Right now, my answer is just to kind of let go and see what happens.
They say through this process of selecting a donor that you know more about the person that you're having kids with, but
Mhm.
you know what I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
than you would with a partner. It's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yes, it is because I think it's very easy to get carried away. It's very
Hmm.
easy to get carried away, and I see it all the time. And yeah, I want to help recipients. I want them to find their absolute dream donor wherever it is. But sometimes I just want to like bring them back down a little bit. Like people are making kids left and right in the old fashioned way, and everything's fine.
Hmm. There's not as much structure to it, I guess you would say,
Yeah.
when you're doing it the old-fashioned way.
But it's also this whole process of whether it be infertility or just going through IVF or surrogacy, it's so, I would imagine it's so difficult. There are so
Hmm.
many aspects, there are so many different people you have to coordinate with, and it costs so much.
Hmm.
I think those going through this journey really just rely on the professionals who are here to help.
You have to really trust in those professionals because I've heard stories too where some are led the wrong way and they start to question things, or they're being told at 40 they're not capable of having kids. And it's like, well, there are other options out there. And so I'm looking to you for guidance as a medical professional to help me to make this dream come
What are
true.
the options? Yeah.
Exactly. Donation might be one of those options for people.
Yep.
You have touched upon a little bit of the improvements that you would like to see happen in this industry.
Mhm.
What are some other improvements or changes that you want to see in regards to regulations or laws when it comes to donor conception?
Great question. I think over time, the directed or open donations are becoming more and more common. And I think that's great. And that goes into what we talked about telling a donor conceived child where they came from and their story. I do think leaning towards that as time goes on will be great for families. As a agency owner, it's a little bit more difficult to find donors who want to be open identity. But I also think it shows when a donor does want to be open, I think it really shows that they are doing this for a good reason. They want to have that connection. It's not just do it and get it done and be over with. It's more personalized. It's more, I think for both sides that having that connection can be really beneficial.
It's a very selfless act, that's for
Yeah,
sure. Hmm.
it is.
What's your vision for how signature donors can better support donor conceived individuals once they become adults?
That's a great question. The donor registry that we use is one of those tools that is leaning more towards that. I think that just making it more talked about, more common, more making more people aware of it is kind of the best thing you can do with anything. Just normalizing, and that's part of what we're trying to do with Signature is normalizing this because it is a very I don't want to say it's an uncommon thing, but a lot of people don't really know about it. With our marketing and outreach and advertising, we actually get a lot of donors who are like, oh, I didn't even know this existed, or I didn't know what it entailed, and wow, I really do want to do it. I can't emphasize enough, it's just education, education, education. Make yourself aware, scream it from the rooftops,
Hmm.
donation, it's great. Sperm donation, just having this is a really great tool for those
Yeah.
who need it.
It opens up a lot more doors to, like, I know the larger banks are so well known, but I think
Yeah.
through your company and having now this offering will be huge for especially single moms by choice because we have another option out there to choose a donor.
Yeah.
If you look across the United States and you look at
Mhm.
the demographics of where people are leaning more into signature donors, do you see a trend anywhere?
Well, we are based in Manhattan and Connecticut. When I started, my outreach to clinics and programs was mainly around here. That's how I started, and that is where a lot of our clients come from.
As we wrap up, Victoria, for anybody listening, I know you mentioned this before, but I wanted to give you another opportunity to let people know where they might learn more about signature donors and where they can find you.
Yeah. So signaturedonors.com is our website. We have a really great blog where we do a couple posts a month about all different topics. Instagram, Signature Donors, is mostly geared for our donors, educating our donors, and same thing with TikTok, Signature Donors. A lot of Q&A, a lot of did you know, those types of things, and just the steps of the process. But in terms of donor selection or viewing our donors, you can find our database on the homepage of our website. It's completely free to sign up and view all of our donors. So you can do that to get more information on us. It'll send you a welcome email with outlining the steps of the process and all of that. But I also would love to speak to you directly. Please reach out to me and let's set up a call and learn more about each other.
And for all the listeners out there, it's another option for you when it comes to a donation of egg and also sperm. So reach out to Victoria at Signature Donors to learn more.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank,
Laura.
thank you so much. This was extremely helpful to, one, learn more about this side of the business, but also to speak to
Yeah.
you and learn about your company.
Amazing. Thank
Yes.
you. Have a good afternoon.
Victoria, thank you so much for helping to educate myself and the listeners on a little bit more about signature donors and egg donation. We appreciate you breaking down what signature donors does and for making something that can feel so clinical feel genuinely human. And just to revisit the numbers from what we talked about in the beginning, we're talking about approximately 10,000 donor egg births every year in the United States. This is reported by Co-Fertility, and there is nearly 500,000 women who have used donor sperm based on the research published through PMC. The impact is real, and it's continuing to grow. For anyone listening who wants to learn more, whether you're thinking about using a donor, becoming one, or just trying to better understand the process, we have links to trusted resources in this show. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such a wonderful insight and inspiring conversation. Excited to see how Signature Donors continues to shape the future of family building. If you have enjoyed these conversations, come hang out with me on Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon for more stories, behind the scenes moments, and what it really means to choose your own version of motherhood, chaos and all. Until next time.